Bobbin that we use in fly tying to hold our thread. Let me show you how to thread this bobbin. I'll have enough thread to work with, so it'll go all the way through the end of this tube. I'll just start it just a little bit up through the end of that tube. I'll bring it up and I'll suck it up through there with my mouth. That's the fastest, easiest way to thread a bobbin. Another way is to use a tool, a bobbin threader. It works the same way as a needle threader. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run this wire down through the tube of my bobbin. And I'll take my thread put it through the wire. Just pull this wire out. We have our bobbin threaded. If there's too much tension on this, my thread keeps breaking, I can separate these feet a little bit, spread them apart to allow the thread to come out a little looser. In the opposite direction, if it's coming out too loose, I can pinch them together to create more tension. We have our bobbin threaded. I'm going to go over the parts of the hook now. The eye of the hook is up front. This is a turn down eye. The shank of the hook is from the eye to the bend. This is the shank of the hook. From where the shank ends straight down to where it goes straight again, this is the bend of the hook. The barb, this pointed edge right here. The point of the hook is the business end, and the gap is the width between the point and the shank. How to put a hook in a vise. Vise heads are different, but we all want to put the hook in the same way on any type of vise that we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in and just grab right at the bend, just a little bit. I want to make sure that the shank of the hook is parallel to the table. You don't want that, or that, or that. I'm just going to catch a little bit of that hook in my vise, parallel to the table. I'm going to attach the thread now to my hook. Being right-handed, I'm going to hold my bobbin in my right hand and my thread in my left hand. My bobbin will be on top of the shank of the hook, and I'm holding the thread tight with my left hand, keeping some tension on it. I'm going to take one turn around the top, and then I'm going to wrap over the thread itself, over what I've got held in my left hand. And I'm just going to take 5 turns. Close up of that. When cutting any thread or material that I want to cut off this hook, I'm always going to hold it straight in the air, straight up top, and I'm going to cut on the top. And a lot of times, instead of snipping with my scissors, I'm just going to hold my scissors open just a little bit and push. The only thing that will cut is what I'm holding on to. I'm going to attach different materials on my hook shank. This is just a 4-strand floss I'm going to do right now. But I'm going to pinch it in my fingers, leaving just a little bit out of my fingers. The less I have sticking out of my fingers, the more control I have with it. I'm going to lay it right on the shank of the hook, right where my thread is, down at about a 45-degree angle. I'm going to take one very loose wrap with my thread and then pull towards me. Now I've tightened up on it. Now I can take 4 more wraps, all in the same spot, and I have my material attached. When wrapping floss around the shank of the hook, it tends to spread the whole width of the shank of the hook. So I want to show you a little tip to keep your floss together. What I'm going to do is I'm wrapping this. Notice I wrap everything over the top away from me. I'm going to wrap this staying on the right hand side of my thread as I wrap down the shank. What that happens is the tension of that thread will keep that floss together and nice and neat for me, so I can tie a nice smooth body. Now once I get down here to the bend, and I can tell I'm at the bend because my thread will be right at the barb of the hook. I'm at the bend now. I'll take one turn in back of my thread. And now I'm going to wrap to the left hand side of my thread with that thread keeping my floss nice and neat and organized. Everything I cut again, I'm going to hold straight up on the top. Now to tie this floss off, I'm going to take my bobbin and drop it over the back. I've got my material in my right hand now. I'm going to switch hands to my left hand. I'm going to take my bobbin and pull it towards me. Keep tension on that thread, and now I can let go of the material. It's not going to go anyplace. Then I'll take 4 turns, all in the same spot. I've got my material attached. I'll lift up all the material and cut it close on top. By cutting it close on top, there's no way I'm ever going to cut my thread on the bottom. I'm going to show you the fastest, easiest way to lead a hook. And I'm going to take a 4 or 5 inch piece of lead, and I'm going to push it up through the eye of the hook just a little bit. And I'm immediately going to start wrapping. I want to wrap about 2/3 of the shank of the hook to that point there. Just taking my thumbnail now, I can pinch off that back edge. Taking my thumbnail on my right hand, I can run it underneath the eye of the hook and pinch off that thread in the front. Now with my thumbnail I can push this and center it onto the shank of the hook. I'll get both the ends just laid down nice and flat. I've got my hook leaded. I want to anchor that now, or that's going to slide first time a fish hits it. So I'm going to start my thread in front of the lead, and I'm going to wrap over that lead several times. I'm going to make sure that I come off the lead in both sides, the back and the front end. You may prefer to weight your fly with beads instead of lead. Your beads are counter drilled. One hole on one side is smaller than on the other side. There's a small hole on that side, large hole on that side. Quite often we'll have to pinch the barbs on the hooks to get the beads to run over nice and smoothly. I'm going to take the small hole, run that through the point of the bead first. I now have my bead on the fly and put it in my vise and start tying my fly. If I want to attach even more weight, I'll use a cone head. The cone head will put on the same manner. The small hole go around the bend first. Putting dubbing on a hook is kind of frustrating to begin with. I think most people, they have the most problems with putting a fur on the thread is because they're putting on too much. I'm just going to put a little bit of moisture on my finger and grab just a very few fibers. I'm going to take them and put them up on my thread, and I'm going to twist in one direction. I'm going to grab a few more. Again, twisting in just one direction. And I'm just putting on enough fibers just to cover that thread. When I get a couple inches on, I'm going to wrap that. I'll always double wrap. I'll wrap down and back. I'll add a few more fibers. You can see I'm not taking much here. I'm just putting enough on just to cover that thread. I'm twisting just in one direction. Over the body of the fly dubbed. Whatever material I'm trying to tie on for a tail, I want to try to tie it on the whole shank of the body instead of tying it on back here just at the tail. I'll end up with a bunch back there if I tie everything on back there. So I'll measure things. I'll hold this up at a slight 45-degree angle and a little bit towards me as I wrap over it, all the way to the bend of the hook. Back there I'll take 5 wraps all in the same spot to attach my tail. To attach a hair wing tail, I'm going to hold my hair up there where I want it. I see where my thread is and where I'm going to attach the hair to the shank of the hook. Now I'm going to switch hands, cut that hair, leaving just enough sticking out of my fingers to tie on. I'm going to bring that up to the shank of the hook and take one loose wrap around it. Then I'll tighten up towards me. Now I'll take some tighter wraps and attach that in good shape. Now I'm going to hold that up at a 45-degree angle and wrap back over the hair. But as I'm wrapping back, I'm going to loosen up on my wraps. If I was to pull tight with my thread now, this hair would flare. It's hollow. I take all the air out of the inside of it and then flare out. So as I wrap back, I'm going to loosen up. I'll take 4 or 5 wraps back there to secure it in good shape. But as I wrap forward, I'm going to tighten up again on my thread, put some tension on it. Now my hair tail. I'm going to apply a fork tail. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go back to the bend, and back there I am going to wrap a little ball of thread. It doesn't have to be big. Just a little ball of thread back there at the bend. Then come forward. I'm going to put some fibers on either side of the shank of the hook. I'll get my measurement, move them back, and wrap over those. Doesn't really matter where I'm wrapping back here. When I get up to the ball of thread, I want them to be on the front side of me. Then I'll wrap towards the eye again. I'll take my other hairs now. And again, doesn't matter where I wrap back here. As I wrap forward to that ball of thread, I'm going to pull them on the back side and keep them on the back side. And just wrap up to that ball of thread. Now I can put those hairs about anywhere I want. I've created the fork tail. I'm now going to use a hackle guard to pull the hackle feathers back to finish off the head on this fly. And how this works is I'm going to take my thread, run it up through this crease right here in the guard. So now my thread's in the little circle. I'll bring that up to the eye of the hook and catch all those little fibers as I put this on the eye of the hook. Got those all pulled back now so I can create a nice smooth head up here. And I just take the tool off. The easiest way to tie your knot off at the end of finishing your fly is using a 1/2-inch tool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my thread and keep it taut. I'm going to take the tool and set it on my thread. I'm going to take one turn of my thread around the end of the tool and bring the tool up to the eye of the hook and gently slide the thread off. Now I have a single 1/2 inch on there. Now I'm going to do a double 1/2 inch to lock it in. I'm going to put my tool on my thread again and go twice around my tool. Bring that up to the eye of the hook and gently slide that thread off. Now I'll lift up on my thread to lock it in place. Now I'm going to finish off the head of my fly with head cement. I'm going to take my bobbin and apply just a little head cement on it. Well, the rotary vise makes this a nice easy step to do. One secret to having a nice clean shiny head is to apply two coats of head cement. The first coat is going to sink in here. This is going to sink in and seal all those threads. Now the second coat that I apply will stand up and be nice and shiny and look wet all the time, cover up all the threads, give a professional look. I've now applied my second coat of head cement, and you can see how shiny that is. Good professional looking head. Now I'm going to use my hair stacker, and this is a tool that's used to even the ends of the hairs up. I'll take my patch of Velcro here. And grab a pretty good bunch. I always want to cut the hair nice and close to the skin. Now I'm going to want to clean this up. This won't stack with all this fluff and everything in here. I'm going to grab just the tips of the hair and I'm going to pull all that fluff out. Get rid of all those short hairs and all that fluff. So all this stuff here I'll discard. What I have left is a nice clean bunch of hair. I'm going to take the hair and my hair stacker. And I'm going to put the hair inside my hair stacker, tips down. I'm going to take that stacker, just tap it a few times on my table. I'm going to hold this parallel to the table and pull out the copper end. You see the ends of those hairs are all nice and even. I can take those now and attach them to my hook as a tail on a fly or as a caddis pattern.